According to the Sacramento District Attorney, over the past 6 years, there have been 46 officer-involved shootings in Sacramento County. Data gathered from local law enforcement agencies, the Department of Justice, and Sacramento County District Attorney's Office show that 11 of those 46 shootings have involved the same 7 officers. 1 officer from the Sacramento Police Department, 2 from the Sacramento Sheriff's Office, and 4 from the Citrus Heights Police Department have been involved in more than one shooting between 2014 and 2019. That means that these same 7 officers have been involved in 24% of shootings that occurred in Sacramento County between 2014 and 2019. 9 out of these 11 shootings were fatal. In 6 of the shootings, the suspect was armed. 5 were unarmed. All of these shootings have been deemed lawful, and each one occurred under very different circumstances. However, it got us thinking. How common is it for an officer to be involved in more than one shooting? And are these law enforcement agencies handling officers that are involved in multiple shootings differently than those with none? To answer the first part of this question, we compared our findings from Sacramento County with other areas that ABC 10 covers. Many district attorneys and law enforcement agencies don't make detailed information on past officer-involved shootings easily accessible, but police misconduct expert and attorney Stuart Katz thinks that they should.
The truth is, this information can lead to better results for the public and better results for the departments and more confidence in law enforcement. Most officers aren't involved in any shootings in their career. The overwhelming majority never shoot anybody, never get shot at. So statistically very unusual.
Our investigation found that San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Sutter County all had 1 officer involved in multiple shootings between 2014 and 2019. After these comparisons, we noticed that the Citrus Heights Police Department had more officers involved in multiple shootings than any other department we looked at. However, 3 out of the 4 officers were involved in the same shooting in 2015, showing how just 1 incident added to the officers' number of shootings. For accuracy and fairness, we also gathered officer-involved shooting statistics from law enforcement agencies with a similar crime rate and population to that of Citrus Heights, like Merced and Tracy. Citrus Heights still had more officers involved in shootings. Vallejo was the closest to Citrus Heights with 3 repeat officers, but a larger crime rate and population. So we reached out to the Citrus Heights Police Department to ask why.
Study of officer-involved shootings, it's so complex, and as we mentioned before, it really depends on, every community is different, because here in my department we have about 90 sworn officers, so the chances of you running into the same police officer in a smaller town like mine is more likely than a bigger agency.
Chief Lawrence said another reason why the same officers were involved in multiple shootings is that 6 of the 7 shooting incidents involved K-9 units.
And a K-9 unit is a unique resource that we deploy. They're inherently going to be involved in those critical incidents.
He also noted how rare using force is needed. In the past 6 years, the Citrus Heights Police Department has had just under 437,000 police incidents. This includes traffic stops and responding to 911 calls.
They're completely unpredictable. There's no way to predict when a critical incident or an officer-involved shooting is going to occur. Of these incidents you're talking about with my agency, I'll tell you that they almost all involved assailants with weapons, people that were trying to do harm to our community.
Despite the rareness of use of force incidents, all law enforcement agencies train extensively to be prepared and to protect the public and themselves in case of a violent encounter. But by so heavily focusing training on being ready for use of force events that so rarely happen, sociologist and professor Michael Sierra Arevalo says it's emphasizing violence in police work.
So whether or not they actually pull the gun is not really as important as the fact that officers are being trained in every single one of those scenarios to be prepared for the possibility that they could pull the gun.
It's what he calls the danger imperative, a focus, or what sociologists call a filter, on an expectation of violence in police work.
In the context of policing, that filter is specially designed to emphasize the possibility of violence. Whether or not statistically policing is safer today than it was 50 years ago, the filter is still going to emphasize violence, no matter how rare it is.
He studied the concept of the danger imperative by spending over 1,000 hours with police in 3 different agencies across the United States.
It doesn't matter if the probability is low, because even if it's incredibly rare, if it does happen and you are not ready, you might die. So the cost is so high that the probability is almost irrelevant. You are, as an officer, going to take steps. to ensure that you survive every encounter that you enter.
Chief Lawrence says training isn't about assuming there are constant threats, but being ready if there are.
What we have to be prepared for is the unknown, the inevitable unknown, and it happens. You see it play out all the time.
And that police are there to uphold the law.
It's a challenging position because we're the face of government that upholds the law that people might not like. But that's not our choice. That's not our job to write the laws. That's the politicians' job.
It's not a story of monsters. It's not a story of bad apples. It's not even really a story about bad barrels or trees, if that's like your departments. And what I've written previously is that this is a story about the roots of policing. This is about what the institution was designed to do. The institution was designed to put people empowered to use violence to enforce laws.
Sierra Arevalo says policing is difficult because for a firefighter, the danger is the fire. For law enforcement, the danger is a person.
And you definitely can't assign morality to flames or smoke. That is not the case in policing. In policing, what stands to hurt you, particularly as you're trained to believe, is that people are going to hurt you.
In Sierra Arevalo's research, he claims the emphasis of confronting violence while on patrol continues when officers leave the academy and begin their on-the-job training with a field training officer.
That training officer is going to get that trainee for a couple weeks, and it's going to be them too. And they are going to be told how this officer views the world, how police work should be done.
One of the biggest takeaways Katz had when he reviewed our findings on repeat officers involved in shootings was about one of the officers with multiple shootings at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office.
You have Sacramento County with one officer with 2 shootings of someone who clearly didn't have a weapon in both instances within 90 days of each other. And then the person's made a training officer.
When we reached out to the Sacramento Sheriff's Office asking if their 2 officers involved in multiple shootings had different or more extensive training, they said that each shooting carries its own set of facts and no 2 shootings are the same. The fact that a particular officer is involved in more than one shooting does not mean that the officer would be given different training or evaluation. Citrus Heights and Sacramento Police Department also conduct year-round trainings, but the officers involved in multiple shootings were not given additional training as all shootings were deemed lawful. All these officers are still employed by the same law enforcement agency.